Hey there, Aubrey. How's it going today?
I'm great, Lindsay. How are you?
Good. I'm doing pretty well. What are we getting into today?
I have a question for you. We
Yeah,
have some
yeah.
great info for you guys about phrasal verbs,
Yes.
and I'm going to use one of them in a question here. Is there anything you've been putting up with lately, Lindsay?
Oh, for sure there is. Right now, I am baking in my home office because our AC works great downstairs. It does not move
Oh,
upstairs. So,
no. Right? The warm
and
air is rising and the AC is staying
yes,
downstairs.
yes. And
Oh,
we had
no.
the windows replaced last year. So those great windows are just locking in the heat. It's really
Uh,
fun up here.
Rough. I bet a
Yeah.
lot of you listeners out there are probably feeling that, right? You're dealing with heat, you're
Mhm.
putting up with the heat and the bad weather, a lot of heat
Yes.
waves all over the world. So you
Yes.
probably are feeling that. I hope your AC is working better than Lindsay's. That sounds terrible.
It's pretty tough. It's hard to put up with. We've had some hot weather, but today, that what we just said is a hint into what we're getting into today, right, Aubrey?
Exactly. We had a great question in a recent Q&A that we host for all of students in any of our courses, and Max asked about some phrasal verbs with put and pull. Today
Yes.
we're going to cover put up because there are so many different meanings just of the phrasal verb put up. And this will
Yes.
be a three-part series. We're going to talk about put down in part 2 and then pull in part 3.
Yes, and big shout out to Max and our other amazing students who are getting super engaged and most importantly, connected to each other in our community. They are connecting, they're getting to know each other, they're practicing together in our live speaking events, our open conversation club. Aubrey, you're seeing this. What are you thinking?
Oh, it's so fun. Shout out to everyone who comes to Open Conversation Club. We got some OGs in there, students that have been coming for a long time, and then new students every week. It's so fun. We have so many great conversation starters, and then students will share what happens in the breakout rooms. It's always so interesting. So you guys got to get into one of our courses so we can get to know
Yes.
you in Open Conversation Club.
100%. So, guys, check out our courses. Come back to our website, allearsenglish.com. Go to view courses. And when you join one of those courses, you are automatically invited to our open conversation club, our monthly fluency parties. And if you're in the personal coach level, you are also invited to the Q&A. All right. Good stuff.
Awesome. So fun.
So,
Let's dive in
yeah.
then, right,
Yeah,
Lindsay?
let's do it. So the first one, the example, Aubrey, that we were
Yeah.
talking about with something you just can't handle, but you are tolerating it is a little bit different from the others because we're adding a special preposition, right?
Exactly. This one's a little more idiomatic. A few of the ones we're talking about today are collocated with a preposition. This one's with, put
Yeah.
up with. Like you said,
Mm.
this means tolerate. It's something you don't love, but you can't change, so you just put up with it.
Yes, yes, exactly. Is there anything you're putting up with right now, Aubrey?
You
Anything?
know, last night I had a conversation with my sister because I've sort of been putting up with a lot from my son, like whining and sort of bad
Oh,
behavior. And instead of taking the time to either discipline him or talk to him, I just sort of put up with it and it's making it worse.
oh,
And she's
interesting.
noticed the same thing with her youngest. So we're both like, all right, we've got to nip this in the bud. No more putting up with this behavior. Because you see that with children, the more you put up with, the more they take advantage and try to get away with.
Yes, and I love that you said nip this in the bud. We've covered that term on this podcast before in the past. So guys, go back into our back catalog to check that out. But yeah, that's good, Aubrey. I think you're probably right. I'm not a parent, but I imagine you got to really get
Absolutely.
after that right away.
You can
Yes.
only put up with so much before it's starting to get where you're like, "Oh, I see. I need to to do something or this is just going to
You're
get out of
testing
control."
you.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. But we have a couple other examples. You can use this in so many ways. You might say, I'm putting up with a lot at work. And
Yes.
this could be coworkers' behavior
Yeah.
or assignments that are difficult, right? It could be anything. If it's just something that you don't love, it's not the way you would choose and you're just having to tolerate, make the best of it, you'd
Yes.
say you're putting up with it.
Right. Or you could ask someone a question. Like I could ask you this about your kid. How do you put up with him? Right?
That's a
How do you
very good question. How do you put up with this
very
behavior?
intense, right? Yeah, how do
This
you
I
put up
get a
with
question
this?
like that sometimes because someone will see, my kid acting out, and they'll ask I'm
Ah,
like, "You're right," but often it's when you're in public, I'm like, "This is not when I want to
yeah.
handle it, discipline," so that everyone's
Yeah.
like, "How does she put up with him?"
Right, and people
Yep,
wonder. So put up with someone or something, right?
exactly, and that's
Love it.
tolerate means the same thing, but it's much more formal. In
Yeah.
daily conversation, I'm much more likely to say put up with than
Yeah.
tolerate.
Yeah, exactly. That one,
Mhm.
we'll save that for written English, for example. We don't really
Mhm.
I think when it comes to writing, we tend to look for those more formal verbs to replace phrasal verbs. Don't you think, Aubrey? When,
That's
you're writing
exactly right.
academic Yeah,
Yes, phrasal
yes.
verbs are much more informal. If you're practicing for a test like the IELTS exam, you
Mhm.
would only use phrasal verbs on, like, speaking part 1, maybe
Okay.
general. When you're writing and trying to be more formal, there are
Yes.
always these more formal verbs that you could replace the phrasal verb with.
So we wanna know both, but in this series, and especially today, we're focusing on those phrasal verbs. What's the next one, Aubrey?
Alright, so the next one is put up, which means to, like, show resistance or effort or skill in a fight or competition. So we'll hear this a lot with sports, maybe
Yeah.
like, "She put up a good fight," when it's like, she
Ah.
really did her best, she may have lost, but she put up a good fight.
So the equivalent to this might be presented a fight, but that doesn't quite work, right? She showed a fight. Well, I'm just trying to think what would be the equivalent in an actual, a more
Maybe like
formal
she
verb.
gave her best effort. She
Yeah.
made her best effort, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Or came forward with a fight. Or the Padres put up a fight, but ended up losing to the Oakland A's. Yeah. So to
That's a
put
great example. You'll hear this a lot with sports, or you're going to see it in sports articles, right? To say, "Oh, they put up a fight," or "They put up a good fight." It means they made their best effort. They
Yes.
tried really hard, but it usually means they did not win.
Yeah. Or one verb that comes to mind is mounted a fight. Have you ever kind of
Oh,
heard that
yes.
used before? That makes sense, right? I
Uh-huh,
like
we'll
that
say
verb.
mounted
Yes.
a defense, right, for
Yeah,
like an
mounted
army, and
defense.
then mounted a fight. You'll hear that as well, yeah.
Love it. Okay, what's the third? We're getting deeper into these phrasal verbs. Guys, don't panic if they're all starting to sound the same. We do have a role play at the end, right, Aubrey?
Yes,
Possibly,
yes,
maybe.
that will help. Yes, definitely, always.
Okay.
Right, this next one is put up for, and this is when something is offered for sale or for auction. So,
Mhm.
for example, you might hear, after he died, his estate was put up for auction. And here, put up is always collocated with for, put up
Mhm.
for either sale or auction.
Okay, good. So we can remember that. So in this
Mhm.
case of the sale or the auction, the for is always there. Is that what we're saying here, Aubrey?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Or you might say, I'm going to put up my car for sale on Facebook. And the other
Mhm.
way to say this is either list or post, especially for online sales, but
Yep.
we'll also say, I'm putting it up for sale.
Yeah. And could we say I'm going to put my car up for sale? You can, right? You can separate
Yes.
it. Is it separable? You can,
Good
correct?
question. Yes, because some phrasal verbs are, like, glued together. This is one where
Right.
it is separable, the direct object could go after. You can either say, "I'm gonna put my car up for sale," or "I'm gonna put up my car for sale." Both work.
Okay, good to know. So anytime we're talking about that sale, that auction, you need that for. Okay,
Yes.
excellent. Okay, Aubrey, we have another version of put up.
Yes, these next 2 are just put up without a preposition. The first one is this is maybe the way you're going to hear put up the most often,
Okay, good.
is when, like, a notice or a sign or a poster is being displayed, we put up a sign, right? When I lost my dog, I put up signs all over the neighborhood.
Okay, or he put up a no trespassing sign. So this one is probably the most straightforward. Another
Yes.
verb for this could be post. He posted, right?
Yep,
A no
posted a
trespassing.
sign, exactly,
Uh-huh.
yep.
Or
And then our
pinned, maybe.
last one is very similar, like, also just put up, but actually a
Ooh,
very different meaning, and
okay.
this means to provide money as backing for an enterprise. You'll hear this when people are talking about gambling. "I'm gonna put up a certain amount of money." How much is he putting up?
Got
But
it.
then also, like, lending money, someone might say, "I'll put up the cash for you to buy a car." That means,
Yes.
like, I'm giving it to you, I'm providing that money.
Excellent. So, yeah. So, as you said, I'll put up the cash for you to buy a car. And then another example sentence they found a sponsor who's putting up $2,000 for the event.
Exactly, and that's, the same meaning would just be donate or provide. They're
Provide.
donating
Yes.
$2,000, they're providing 2,000
Yeah.
or just giving, right? They're giving
Yeah.
$2,000.
Yeah. Provide was the verb that came to mind first, right? Because it's
Yeah.
kind of formal. And yeah, I like that one. But those work too, giving or donating. So, role play time. Shall we do it?
Yes, you and I are neighbors in this role play. I'll start us out.
Okay.
You played in a tennis tournament this weekend, right? How did it go?
Well, we put up a fight, but didn't place. I made a lot of errors. I don't know how my partner puts up with me.
Oh, it happens to the best of us. I bet it was fun, though.
It was a blast. I'm glad we did it. Hey, did you see this sign that Miller's put up?
Oh, I thought the sign was announcing an estate sale. I assumed their home was put up for sale.
No, no. The sign I saw was actually a cancellation of the sale. I guess they have an uncle that put up the money for them to keep the home. Nice.
Nice. So we used all of them here.
Wow.
You may have
And
heard put up over and over, but in every case, it means something different.
often we say it's unrealistic to see the same words or variations of the words used in a role play. In this case, it's not because phrasal verbs are everywhere, right?
Yeah. A native
Particularly this
speaker
one.
probably wouldn't even notice that they're saying put
Yeah.
up over and over because every time it means something different. It's
Agreed.
interesting.
Agreed. So I started by saying we put up a fight but didn't place. I made a lot of errors and I don't know how my partner puts up with me. So that one is the tolerate, right?
Yeah, and it almost doesn't feel like or sound like you're saying put up twice because they mean such different
Right.
things, right? Put up a
Totally.
fight meaning gave our best effort.
Mounted
And
the
then the
fight.
second one, yeah, puts up with me. Like, how do they tolerate me? How are they not angry that I'm not performing better?
Oh, that's a thing in tennis. That is definitely guilt, right? You feel that
Right.
you and your partner, unforced errors, maybe you double fault. In
Mhm.
singles, you just have to answer to yourself, but in doubles, it's
Exactly.
kind of
In
becomes a little more
pickleball
of a mind
too,
game. Oh,
if
yeah.
often the error is that I'll accidentally, like, set the other team. I'm, like, lobbing it too high and they can just slam it
Yeah.
down on us. I'm like, "My bad."
You float the ball. Here you go. Boom.
Yep.
Love that. Love that. And then what else did I say here, Aubrey? I said it
So
was
then you said, "Did you see the sign the Millers put up?" And this just means posted. Like, they've
nice.
put up a sign in front of their home, so now there's a sign that's visible there.
Mhm.
And then I said, "Oh, I assumed their home was put up for sale." So I clearly haven't, like, read the sign. I just saw a sign there and thought it was put up for sale, meaning it's now available for sale.
Yeah, presented for sale or
Mhm.
has become available, exactly. And
Yep.
then I said, "No, the sign I saw was actually a cancellation of the sale. I guess they have an uncle that put up the money for them to keep the home." And what was the key verb that we linked to that,
Yeah,
Aubrey?
so that would it means the same as provided,
Yeah.
gave, donated. When
Mhm.
someone and this could be if you put up the money, it could be that you're lending money and it will be paid back, or it could
Mhm.
be just provided, donated, and you won't be paying it back. So
Yes.
just using the phrasal verb put up, that doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily tell you if the money is given or lended.
That's an important point, actually. So I think
Mhm.
provided would be the best because donate is different. The implication is
Exactly,
it
that
won't
means
be
there's no
returned.
payback, right?
Yeah.
Provided, they might be paying it back.
Yes. This is actually really, I mean, one of the takeaways for me today is this is a great exercise to go and challenge yourself, guys. When you hear or you use a phrasal verb, what's the substituting verb, non phrasal
Yes.
verb? What's the more formal verb you would use there? There's
Exactly,
not
especially
always.
because it's not always that clear. It took us a
Yeah.
second sometimes to think of what exactly would be the and sometimes there are multiple options. And then
Hmm.
which one's more formal? Which one would I use if I were writing an IELTS essay, for example? Which one would be the most impressive and formal?
Yeah. For example, if you're, for IELTS, it's great. Or if you're living in the US and maybe even in one given day, you go through a very casual, you go to a barbecue, you're using these informal phrasal verbs, and then you go to a more serious black tie event and
Right?
you're actually changing your language. You're becoming more buttoned up and professional sounding.
Absolutely, right? Because
So,
suddenly the event is more formal, you're elevating your language, and you may
yes.
want to replace some of these phrasal verbs with the more impressive formal verb.
Yeah. Any other takeaway for today that we want to let our listeners know?
I think just don't let phrasal verbs stress you out. If you look
Yeah.
at the dictionary entry for put up, there are like 15 meanings.
Oh,
We've
no.
provided the most common here, but the best way to learn them is like an episode like this where we're breaking them down, we're giving you examples, and then just taking in a lot of English, right? If you're looking through the dictionary for phrasal verbs, that's stressful. I think that's so stressful to see so many meanings and not really be able to hear them in a role play, hear them in examples.
Yes.
So this, I think, is really the way to learn phrasal verbs.
Yes, I love it. And special thank you to our student Max for the question. Keep those questions coming, guys. You can send your question in to support@allearsenglish.com and we'll make sure that gets to our team here. And hopefully your question will be featured on an episode. All right.
Yes, and be sure to hit follow for part 2 and part 3 coming up
Yes.
right here on the All Ears English podcast.
All right. Good stuff. See you there, Aubrey. Take care.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.